Hello and welcome to Chicanime. My name is Lauren, and today I am looking at part 2 of AniNews' video about Ariel Omega. So I'm looking forward to this. I do think these are very fun. These are interesting. I like looking into these little details that I would never ever know. Like, I had no idea this lady existed, but she's awesome. So I am looking forward to finding out just how strong she really. Ow! I hurt myself on my earring. Ow. Wow. Look, it's a very sharp little snaky. But like the end of it is like incredibly sharp. I just tried to brush my hair away and it decided to kill me. Great. Thanks, Snaky. Anyway, sorry for all that distraction. I'm like bleeding. Great. Anyway, it's fine. Let's find out how strong she is, because it's definitely way stronger than me, because apparently a little snaky earring can take me right out. So love that for me. Let's fix oops, that's the wrong way to fix the computer. There's that.
Last episode, I introduced you to the mysterious leader of Nazaric's combat maid squad, the youngest yet strongest member, who, when in command, leads what's known as the Pleiades' Seven Sisters. We discussed both her responsibilities as the area guardian of the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary and as the overseer of Nazaric's teleportation network. But There's one final duty that we didn't cover that's even more important than all of her other responsibilities combined. For to fail at it is to result in a loss so great for Nazaric that even Ainz couldn't overcome it. So let's finish off this character profile with that very duty, as well as her build, as we continue to find out everything that there is to know about the Pleiades' seventh sister, Oriole Omega. But first, this video is sponsored by Cacao Games, bringing us Black Desert Online's newest game mode called the Shadow Arena. And if you're thinking that sounds like a battle royale, it's because that's exactly what it is. Honestly, if any MMORPG was going to take a stab at it, I'm glad that it was BDO, because their high-end graphics, seamless open world, and real-time action.
This is their high-end graphics 5 years ago, so grain of salt, right?
Combat would make for some pretty intense multi-partied PvP. Unfortunately though, you can't take your thoroughly designed custom characters into this 50-player battle arena. Instead, you start off as a spirit that's launched to random areas within the arena. You then search for one of the 9 character classes scattered around, possess them, then loot for armor, gear, weapons, and skills from random chests and roaming monsters, all while avoiding the ever-closing circle. That
actually sounds really interesting.
Battle Royale experience, especially with the skill looting system, which opens up quite a bit of room for unique playstyles. So if you'd like to take a stab at it, then you can use the link in the description to sign up and start a 7-day free trial today. Just keep in mind that the Shadow Arena is
Alright, see, this looks much better.
So if you do plan on trying it out, make sure that you're available at these times. Now, let's get back to the video. So, what is it that's so important that it completely dwarfs the importance of leading the combat maids and managing the complex teleportation system across the floors of Nazaric? Well, Oriole Omega's final and most important duty is to personally watch over and guard the item known as the Staff of Ainz Ul Gon. Now, this may not sound like much, cause to you, this just may seem like any other item. But this isn't just any item. The Staff of Ainz Ul Gon is what's known as a guild weapon. We've talked about these before in a much older video, but in short, such items have a power that is nearly as strong as world-class items, and greatly exceed those of divine-class weapons, which are known to be the strongest category made normally available to the players. This staff was made specifically for Momonga, as it powers up many of his abilities in addition to providing access to many free spells. It's not just a fancy weapon meant to signify Ainz's authority as the guild master. It holds the entire guild of Ainz Ul Gon together, and allows him to exercise his guild admin functions. But all that power doesn't come without a cost. There's a significant risk in having a guild weapon such as this, because should it ever be destroyed, the guild itself will immediately be disbanded. Well, at least that's how it worked in the video game of Yggdrasil. What disbanded truly signifies in the New World is left to interpretation and speculation. Though it's not
I feel like it would absolutely crumble.
It would be like for a guild to be disbanded in an MMO. I'd imagine that it's something along the lines of the guild disappears and everyone gets kicked from the member list, which for a video game that you've dedicated countless hours and days to would be absolutely devastating. Though
Brutal.
I can't say I'm surprised, considering that this is the same game that has a world item that lets you permanently delete other players. But what happens to the guild housing, the treasury, and the NPCs? Does the treasury just disappear or go to someone's inventory?
I would imagine that it just gets shot out into the world. Like, things don't necessarily disappear, but they're no longer yours. They're just out in existence somewhere.
Ownership over Nazarick lost and reverted back to the state it was in before being conquered, or does it remain as property of a specific member? Then what happens to the NPC's allegiances? Do they suddenly become no longer loyal to Ainz and only to their creators, or do they just lose all sense of obligation completely? It's definitely an interesting prospect to consider. Suffice to say, Ainz definitely does not ever want to find out the hard way what immediately disbanded means. Hell, he only took it out in the first place because the server was going to shut down in a few hours anyway, and it wouldn't really matter. So, despite its powerful combat capabilities, any guild that was stupid enough to carry their guild weapon around with them wouldn't last very long. The smart ones kept it hidden away deep within their guild base, and only took it out when the risk of losing it was warranted. In Ainz's case, he would probably only have ever used it during a last-ditch defense effort of the throne room itself. But ever since he was teleported to the New World, he really doesn't have any reason to carry it around unless needing it for one of its specific purposes.
Which he has used it a few times. Like, it's come in handy.
Such as checking the guild console or exercising his admin rights. As a matter of fact, those are just about the only reasons he'll ever casually take it out. It's so sacred to the extent that Ainz actually made a replica of it to wield for ceremonial purposes or for when he wants to command his authority.
Okay, I did not realize that. Okay, well, I'm an idiot. I thought it was the thing.
Back to Oriole Omega now. Remember, she's the area guardian of the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary, meaning that's also where the staff of Ainz Orgon typically resides. Thus, it should go without saying that the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary is arguably the most well-defended location in all of Nazarick, even when compared to the Treasury, especially when you consider the fact that it's also the guild's main security hub. As we mentioned last video, it's guarded by elite high-level monsters, including Oriole Omega herself. And to even get there, you first have to bypass the rest of the 8th floor. On top of this, it was impossible even for users of the Ring of Ainz Orgon to teleport directly into the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary. So, in short, attempting to destroy the guild weapon, or even disrupt the security network, was quite difficult to say the least. And by the time that you had made it all the way to the end of the 8th floor, you would have already conquered the majority of the defenses in Nazarick anyway, including even its trump card, meaning there was very little left in your way except the throne room itself. Of course, the Ariadne system doesn't necessarily say you have to provide a path to every location in the guild. Take the treasury for example. It's in a completely sealed off location that's only accessible with the Ring of Ainz Orgon. The only room that must have a direct path at all times is the throne room. So it could be that the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary is in a separate space entirely.
Okay, I think I got that a little confused last time then. I definitely thought that you had to have a single path to everywhere. So that's interesting that it's only the heart.
Just like the treasury. And it can't be entered unless Oriole Omega lets you in via a specific teleportation gate. That said, there may be countermeasures to the teleportation blocks and traps, and it is actually implied that the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary is reachable on foot. I'm just saying, if I was in charge of the defenses of Nazarick and nothing was stopping me from doing it, I'd definitely try and make my security hub unreachable through both a teleportation.
Oh, is that from that, like, the thing that I've forgotten what it's called, but it's got like people from a bunch of different animes and they shove them into a high school situation.
Block and a sealable gate.
It's what the animation looks like.
On the off chance that someone did finesse their way in, it would really suck to be locked out from the inside. So having a backup method of gaining entry into the sanctuary is probably a good idea. But even in that worst case scenario where invaders did somehow manage to attack the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary, Oriole Omega's #1 priority was to safeguard the guild weapon. She had the authority to take the weapon and flee to the throne room, or even some other location. Presumably, the objective was to deliver it to Ainz's hands. Now, while the security hub would be a significant loss, the loss of the guild weapon would be even more catastrophic, and it was something that should be avoided at all costs. So
Yeah.
that pretty much sums up her final responsibility. Now, what about her build? I'm sure you're much more curious as to what type of NPC
That's why I'm
allies
here
of
in the
rest of guild
video.
would put in charge of not only leading the Pleiades battle maids, not only being the gatekeeper of Nazarick and its de facto chief of security, but also to be the escort and guard of quite literally the most important item to the entire guild. What
She's gotta be
she actually
banging.
capable of? Cause, I mean, with that type of resume, you'd think that she'd be able to take on both Rubetto and Shaltir at the same time. But I think it's not quite what you'd expect. You see, I've saved it for the end for one very specific reason.
'Cause it's
actually
disappointing?
something of a spoiler, as
Oh, okay. I was like, it's gonna be like a anticlimax, but no, spoiler. All right. I guess it kind of depends on where they put her stats for the thing. Especially if she's the gatekeeper, her main job is she's the guy in the chair, right? So she wouldn't necessarily have to be good at fighting. She has to be like quick. She's got to be stealthy. She's got to be very, very smart. But she doesn't necessarily, and she's good at probably defensive spells, but she probably doesn't have to have too much like attack magic.
the details of her build have been revealed during an arc that hasn't been covered in the anime.
Okay.
Everything before now, and even in the first video, is something that you could have potentially picked up on by reading scenes or lines that were cut from the anime, or even by looking at the side stories that were released as bonus material for the Blu-rays and the manga.
Cool. I was wondering where some of this information came from, but thank you for telling me.
But for this, we're about to venture into territory that many of you anime-only watchers wouldn't have experienced yet. That said, I'll be sure to keep the when, where, and why of how these powers were revealed hidden, and simply
Okay, that's
focus
cool.
on explaining the mechanics of her build rather than any of the surrounding context. But if you're trying to stay clean of absolutely any spoilers whatsoever, well, here's your obligatory spoiler warning then. Feel free to pause, binge read all 4,000 plus pages of all 13 of the currently released light
No.
novels, and then
I mean,
come back to this video
eventually.
after when you're done.
I will eventually do that, but not right now.
Okay, we good? Perfect. Put simply, Oriole
He keeps bringing Holo in. I really wasn't expecting to see so much Holo.
Omega is a commander or buffer class archetype. Her build basically revolves around giving massive buffs to allies. It's a pure support build that has very little combat capabilities of its own. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'd know that she isn't the only commander type either. They seem to be quite diverse and spread throughout Nazarick. Like Pandora's Actor, for example, who we theorize to have the ability to buff allies in a predefined location. I'm sure you yourself
get
are
to him.
well aware of the different types of buffs that can exist. Those of you who have played MMORPGs before have probably seen a cleric or healer tell everyone to group around him at the beginning of a dungeon so that they can cast an area of effect buff. Or maybe you've seen a tank build that specializes in auras, which grants buffs to nearby allies.
I've seen things like bards and people and clerics do here, I'm going to give you, resistance against good and evil, or, here's I think rangers, somebody can druids, I think, can give people cunning of fire, they can give them certain buff stats, which I've seen that. All of my experience comes from D&D, nothing from MMORPGs or anything like that, nothing online. It's all just been straight up 5th edition. But that's where I'm bringing some stuff in.
Well, with Oriole Omega, the only thing that we know for certain is that she can provide some really good buffs. But I have a bit of a theory. In keeping with the whole Miko theme that she has going on, I suspect that she specializes.
I'm so sorry. I'm not bored or anything. Sometimes I blame the lights because sometimes I just start yawning.
I have a bit of a theory. In keeping with the whole Miko theme that she has going on, I suspect that she specializes in extremely powerful single-target buff spells that take several minutes to cast, but last for an extremely long time. After all, what do Mikos do? Purification rituals, ceremonial dances. The typical Miko activity is a slow, contemplative, and graceful affair that's set to somber music and singing. Basically, we like to think that she stands in front of you and performs a very elaborate ceremonial dance that significantly buffs you after a few minutes. Sure, maybe she has a few area of effect buffs too, but her specialty is definitely in single target. So, in summary, she has a bunch of very powerful buffs that last for hours, but in exchange,
that's
they're
so
slow
useful
to cast and limited in scope.
So it's like, again, it's great for if you're preparing for something. It's like, it's kind of like in D&D, there's a thing called the Hero's Feast. And it is crazy expensive to prepare, but you get a ton of buffs that last all day. So it's like people will you do it the night before you're pretty sure a big encounter is going to happen, and that way you have it for the entire day, or like you'd make it your breakfast that day, so that way you have that effect for the next 24 hours of like, resistance to poison, resistance to fear, like, you're plus intelligent, like it like buffs basically everything. So it is, you got to be careful. And you got to decide when exactly to do it at just the right moment. But if she has something like that could last, that have multiple benefits and could last all day for like a huge fight, that's big. That's a massive bonus.
Even with those downsides though, allow me to emphasize just how powerful these buffs are. For example, if she was to use them to buff her sisters, a group of 6 characters spanning from levels 46 to 63, after the buff, they'd in turn be collectively strong enough to give a single level 100 character a fairly hard time, or at least keep them distracted for a little while. That may not seem like much, but that's,
I feel like it seems like a lot.
Powerful. Keep in mind the exponential growth and power scaling that comes from going up a single level. I mean, just about any level 100 character can take on an infinite number of level 1 to 40 characters because they literally cannot deal damage to a level 100. Usually, you have to be within 20 levels of a level 100 to stand a chance against them, even when with a massive group. That's why most Nazarick NPCs intended for combat are generally level 85 or higher. After the Shaltir incident, AniNews actually instituted a policy requiring that any NPC leaving Nazarick be accompanied by a squad of at least 5 level 75 NPCs.
Dang, okay.
To not only defend them from potential threats, but to also flee and report to Nazarick in the case that they were captured, killed, or compromised in some way. AniNews was fearful of the chance that they encounter hostile level 100 players who possessed divine class equipment or world items. Logically speaking then, it's safe to assume that in a battle between 2 evenly matched level 100 NPCs, you'd need to be at around level 75 to even matter at all, or at least serve as a useful distraction. As such, I feel it's appropriate to say that the Pleiades can gain approximately 25 levels of combat power from Auriel Omega's buffs. Obviously,
I want to see this lady.
How long they'd last would depend on the skill level.
Season 5, bring her in. I want to see her so bad.
Build and stats of the level 100 character. Someone like AniNews, Touch Me, or Shaltir probably wouldn't be too inconvenienced at the end of the day if they were just up against the 6 buffed Pleiades. But a less combat-focused build like Demiurge or Aura might be in more dire straits, and could very well lose without their minions nearby to defend them. So, how does this powerful supportive ability apply to Auriel Omega as the residential security monitor? First of all, the buffs would actually be very useful for offensive operations and attacking other guilds. When you're attacking someone, you basically get to determine when and where the attack takes place. So a buff taking a really long time to cast isn't really a major downside. But having Auriel Omega as just a designated buff bot isn't really an efficient use of her time. I mean, if that was her only job, she'd spend a really long time standing around doing absolutely nothing in between operations. Sticking her in the teleportation gate security hub lets her serve a triple role in offense, defense, and peacetime. During daily activities, she's monitoring the security cameras and vetting people using the teleportation gates. Before major offensive
gotta do something with your time.
The participants would stop by the sanctuary on their way out so that she can buff them. And finally, on defense, someone can take her job of actively monitoring and controlling the gates, while various key individuals, like say level 100 NPCs, would teleport into the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary to receive their buffs. This actually could have been the exact case during the worker invasion of Season 3, as we saw that Albedo took over the role of managing the security and defense network.
Oh, dip,
That was for the reason of sending the members of the Worst 5 to go and receive buffs from Auriel Omega. It's more likely that she's just not in charge of running security 24/7. More like during the times when there isn't an active invasion or military operation. Cause when there is, she'd need to be free.
I still love this outfit on Shaltir. Love the mask, love the hat, love everything about this outfit. Sorry, super distracted. I feel like I say that every single time it cuts to her in that outfit, but I adore it.
Isn't an active invasion or military operation. Cause when there is, she'd need to be free in order to utilize her powers to aid the rest of Nazarick. From a fundamental standpoint, the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary would serve as a good staging ground both for launching offensive operations outside the guild, as well as coordinating the final line of defense during major invasions of Nazarick. Being behind several floors, it would take quite some time for attackers to make their way down to it, and as the center of the teleportation monitoring and redirection network, it would make for an efficient hub of transportation. In the worst possible case, where the 8th floor looked like it was going to fall and the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary invaded, Oriel could bless a few of the guards and use the many high-level NPCs there to cover her retreat, then evacuate to the throne room and deliver the guild weapon to Ainz, before finally returning to the door to buff her fellow Pleiades for a final stand. Now, I'm no expert, but that seems to me like a pretty well thought out emergency defense and evacuation.
Yeah, it makes sense. I love that he's like, this is a theory. And I'm like, yeah, this is how it goes. Thank you. I'm like, it is, we don't know. I like that we don't know, but I love this. I think this is great.
Very much fitting to one of the top guilds of Yggdrasil. But yeah, that's about it for Oriel Omega's personality, appearance, responsibilities, and capabilities. We don't really know how exactly her buffs work, or what buffs she has precisely.
I want to see it happen.
We just have a general idea. Unlike Pandora's actor, there isn't a lot of detail on the exact mechanisms of her capabilities. Sure, there's a little more information that I could have shared, but we're just trying to minimize unnecessary spoilers. And unlike Albedo, Demiurge, Sibas, and whoever, we don't have a character sheet to analyze, class names to speculate on, or even stats to look at. We also don't know if she has any offensive abilities or how strong she is in a fight by herself.
She's very enigmatic.
As a level 100 NPC, she can beat her sisters with just her base stats, but if her build is dedicated entirely to buffing and nothing else, she probably can't hold her own against a specialized fighter as low as level 80. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. I've actually posted a poll for the next floor guardian to be covered, so feel free to vote for that to choose the next Overlord video. Also, a quick reminder that the Overlord themed merch is available in the description below. Now, before I go, I'd like to thank Cacao Games once again for sponsoring this video. You can use the link in the description to start a 7-day free trial and try out Black
Probably
Desert
not
Online
anymore.
Shadow Arena today. But remember, for now, it's only at these specific times of the week. Anyway, as always, thank you so much for
probably
watching,
not
and
anymore.
If you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao.
Ciao. Okay, again, fascinating. I adore it. I'm going to hit that little like button. Like. All right, so the next one is the 5 worst in Overlord. Nazarick's worst and most evil, probably guardian NPCs. Okay, part 1. Okay, great. So that looks fun. I'm excited. Next time we get to find out who's the worst of the worst. And that's another 2-part. They're all going to be 2-parters, essentially. But okay, grand. Love that. Thank you so much for watching this with me. Let me know if there's any sort of like extra content or something specific you want to see for like Spy Family, because I just finished season 1 of that as well. And I think it would be really interesting. I didn't find anything in my initial 5-minute look. So if there's anybody, like any creators or whoever for Spy Family that you want to get a little bit of love to, I would love to know. And I would love to watch a background video on that as well. So thank you again for watching, and I will see you all next time for figuring out who's the most evil. Sounds like a plan. Bye-bye.